Coaching isn't important till it is. They hate the thought of spending money on athletics in a lot of places because it's a waste. It's not academic. They don't want to, they're afraid that they won't be known as an academic institution, that there'll be an athletic institute. Like, that's a bad thing. And I say this all the time. If you'll spend more money on youth sports, you don't have to build as many jails. If you'll invest in youth sports, then you don't need as many police cars. You're not going to have the same amount of drug problems. It's going to get phased out. And I believe that.
It's time for episode 52, and trust me, you're going to want to grab a notebook and something to drink and sit back and get ready for this one, because we're talking to Butch Chaffin on the Coaching Life podcast, and it starts right now. Well, this is the Coaching Life podcast, and I'm Chris Stewart. I'm with my good buddy, Pat Martin. We are both baseball coaches. We love it. We love talking about ball, and we have someone on with us today that we are both very excited about having this conversation. And I got to thinking about this, and of all the guests that we've had in the short amount of time that we've done this podcast, Pat, I believe this is actually our first high school baseball coach that we brought on as a guest. In terms of a guest, we've had college coaches, we've had college players, we've had so this will be it. So what we're basically doing here is we're setting the bar extremely high for all the other high school baseball coaches we bring on the podcast. So our guest today is Butch Chaffin, and Butch is from Cookeville, Tennessee. He's been a teacher there for 30 years. Is that correct, Butch? 30 years at Cookeville, Tennessee? 33 years. Wow. And has been the head baseball coach for this. Would have been your 26th year of yes, 26th year of being the baseball coach there, but has over 32 years or so of baseball experience. He was a Division I assistant coach at Tennessee Tech for 4 years. He's been a special assignment scout for the Kansas City Royals for 3 years, and involved with USA Baseball, a really cool opportunity for 13 years. He's been to 13 district championships and 6 regional championships and a state championship appearance there in Tennessee. He's been a 5-time District 7 AAA Coach of the Year and 3-time Region Coach of the Year. He's has had a ton of student athletes that have gone on to play college baseball. Pat, I think you told me it's 120-some college baseball.
Yeah.
Good grief. Well, all those numbers, though, are things that I know that the only relationship that I've had with Coach Chaffin has been none. I mean, it's been Twitter. It's been basically interacting a little bit on Twitter and seeing some of the things that he puts out there. And I'll say this, from the description of himself underneath his Twitter handle to the things that he tweets on a daily basis, those numbers you would never know exist in his life, because this is a man who is a servant of the game of baseball. He's a servant of people, and he loves the game of baseball, and he loves people, and he loves teaching, and he loves giving back to the great game that's given to him. And it's for those reasons that I say that this is going to be just an incredible conversation, an incredible episode, because Coach, that speaks to our heart as well. And so we want to welcome you on the Coaching Life podcast.
Thank you so much. This is awesome. And I've done a couple other podcasts, but it seems like it was very scripted. And I like you said earlier, I think this is just going to be a great conversation. I've really been looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Good to have you, Coach.
Thank you so much.
Well, one of the things that's on a lot of people's hearts and minds right now is the situation that we find ourselves in, where programs and schools across the country are sadly their seasons are being canceled, and their opportunity to play this year is shrinking as it seems. And, as coaches and as people, we, at least the majority of us, I think we feel a need and a desire and a purpose to reach out to our players and our athletes, and to kind of give them some sort of encouragement, just something that they can hold on to in this unprecedented time that we find ourselves in. Coach, I know that your high school team recently their schedule, your season's been canceled. Could you give us some insight into what you've told them, or at least give us some advice, or coaches throughout the country advice on how to handle that communication with their players.
I just told my guys, I said, this is bigger than baseball. That doesn't make it more important than us, but it's bigger than baseball. And my guys are smart. They know what's going on. And it's just such a big unknown. We've never faced anything like this. And I think the frustration has now become not necessarily the virus, but the fact that, to use a football term, they keep moving the goal line away.
Yeah.
First of all, it was going to be 2 weeks, and then it was going to be April 2nd, and then it was going to be April 6th, then the 15th, then the 27th. And they just keep moving the goal line away because it is a big unknown. And that just shows you how much they don't know. And I told my guys that, and I text them. We have a group text, and I text them something every day. And, and it started out, hey, make sure you're throwing, make sure you're running, stay in shape, stay ready. This is going to break. And after a couple of weeks, it became, hey, hope you guys are having a good day. Get out, move around, enjoy the sun. And then it became, hey guys, stay tough. Don't know what's going to happen, but we should be hearing something soon. And it turned into, I'm so sorry that this is happening.
Yeah.
So I went from coach mode to, trying to teach them a lesson in suddenness and the way this all went down, and I told them, and I didn't know, we kind of had a feeling. We were in a tournament in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and we played 2 games on a Saturday, and, it was all over the news, and we could see people closing down school systems all around us. And before the last inning of the last game we played, we were playing a team that was scrapping with us, and I thought we should have been doing better. We left a small village on base and couldn't get that 2-out hit. And I told them, in a 4-2 game, I kind of got them up, and I felt like, and I never do this, I never get them up and preach to them as a team, but I got them up and I said, this could be your last inning of baseball.
Yeah.
So I want you to touch the grass. I want you to touch the dirt. I want you to lock in right here and play one good solid inning of baseball and finish this team off. And it happened. And to be honest with you, when I first started out coaching, I confused intensity with being a competitor. And so, I still get loud. If you ask my guys, I get loud, but I don't miss an opportunity at the end of the day to tell them I love them. And they know that. It's not corny. And the hardest thing I've ever had to do as a coach is to get a 14-year-old player to tell me he loves me back.
Yeah.
And, it takes a lot more courage. It takes a lot more courage to say that than it does to stand in the box off 90 when you're 14. And, but I told him, I said, this could be it, guys. Give me a good inning, good clean inning right here. And we did, and we finished the game off. And after the game, I was just heartbroken because Gatlinburg is about 2.5 hours from us. So, they all rode home with their parents, and we rode home with the coaches, and we were in the van, and it was really quiet in the van because I think my coaches realized what was going on also. And that's the last time I've seen my team together. And, we've kind of text, and we have the Remind app, and I've stayed in contact with the parents, and I had 8 seniors. And here's the saddest part of the whole thing. And one of my players, his father's a postman, and his son's a senior pitcher for us. And just good people, good guy, and kids. I love the kid, and I love the mom and dad. And he's got a little brother coming that's awesome. And I think parents were thinking, oh, it's sad my son doesn't get to play games. And they didn't get to play games. We didn't get to watch him play games. And he kind of looked at me and he said, isn't that sad? And I said, that's sad. But the sad part to me is these seniors didn't get to complete the cycle. Yeah. They come in as scared freshmen. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything about a weight room. They think they know baseball. They think baseball is pitch, hit, catch. And that's just a minor part of it. And then as a sophomore, now they know, oh, we're going to the weight room. This is what we're going to do. They still can't really do it, but they know what's coming. But they still don't understand why. And then as a junior, they start getting it. But then that senior year in my program with me, that senior year, I'm really close with my seniors because it's like, wow, you survived. And now I can let you see behind the curtain. I catch myself asking them on purpose. Sometimes I don't care, but I'll say, hey, what do you think we ought to do right here? And they'll tell me, and I already know what I want to do. I just want to make them feel like they're part of the process sometimes. But I get good, honest conversations. And in the coach's office, after practice, it's always seniors sitting in there in the chairs. And they just want to talk. And they'll talk about baseball or school or whatever. And it's almost like, they're about to complete the cycle. And that's at our place. Last night would have been senior night. And that's what's so sad is senior night, it's nothing but tears. And we used to do it before the game, and now we do it after the game so we can take our time. They're not distracted. And I can't remember the last time we didn't have a senior just losing it after the game, because they know that, that circle has almost, closed and come to an end.
Yeah.
So, you try to maintain contact and have empathy for the situation. I talked to a coach the other day, and he was talking about next year. And I told my booster club president, I said, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're never going to forget this class. We're putting a sign up on the side of our concession stand with all their names on it. I said, this has a very, 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 it's going to be very easy to forget these guys. And we can't, because they had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, it's going to be very easy to forget them because the ways that we tend to remember classes is through their accomplishments. And they didn't get that opportunity this year. Coach, the way you described the progression of the communication is like an ideal. It's the script of how it's happened everywhere, I think. And I know here in Ohio, you probably know this, you may or may not know this, but in Ohio, they didn't get any games in. I know, talking with coaches around here and being very close with parents of kids that are seniors in this year's class here locally, and watching Facebook and Twitter and Instagram on Monday night when they were posting pictures of their kids, and basically they had a little bit of hope up until Monday that they were going to have some sort of a season. And this was actually at Athens High School where I live. This was a class with 11 seniors, and they won the district championship last year, and they really felt like they had a shot. This is one of the best classes that have come through in a long time, and they're not going to, like you said, they're not going to get that closure. And that's such a great word, with people saying they're missing out on games. They're missing out on games. And yeah, that's true. But the picture is so much bigger, and we know that, and they know that as well. I know. I want to ask you this. One of the things that coaches have had a hard time with, and I've heard this a lot from softball coaches, baseball coaches in our area, is their kids have checked out, through that progress of communicating. At first they were sending them workouts every day, and the coaches were even posting on the Google Classroom page, this is, I'm doing the workout, man, today was tough. And I had coaches say, man, the only people who are posting on this are coaches. I can't get our kids to respond. And then a few of them would respond. They would have them put videos up. And as it went on day by day, week by week, less and less responses, fewer and fewer responses. And now I talked to someone yesterday, and he's like, man, he goes, they are especially checked out now. He said, they want to turn the page, whatever that may be, whatever the next page might look like. Which
early on, I didn't do that. We didn't post workouts. Mm-hmm. We just said, hey, move around, throw, keep your arms ready, that kind of stuff, because I didn't want to put that on them, because I didn't know how long it'd last. And early on, my fear was, okay, we're going to take a month off, and then we're going to come back May 1st, and we're going to play a couple games and then go into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And I talked with several other coaches about that very thing. Yeah. Because you use the season, the beauty of baseball is, and a lot of people don't like this word, but I'm going to use the word, and that's why I like it, is grind. It's a grind. It's set up to be a grind. Mm-hmm. And especially, football, you play a Friday night game and you got a week to dwell on it, win, lose, whatever. Basketball, those guys lose their mind if they have to play 3 games in a week. Right. And, we have a spot in our schedule where on purpose, we play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 on Saturday. Because I want to see how they react when they're tired, and they're sore and they've got to gut it out and figure out how to win a game. And, I like to see that. And that's the beauty of baseball is we play today, we get beat. Hey, we got to come back tomorrow. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you take players after they've started their season and shut them down for a month. And then you expect to start it back up again. I was really worried about the quality of the product if we did start back up. Yeah. And I was like, wow, if we take a week off, okay. And then it got to be 2 weeks and our coaches are like, are we going to post workouts? And I was like, guys, we've got really good kids and half of them, they're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. And I said, just let them go fishing or whatever. Cause in my head, I was like, this is going to be a while. And I didn't want to put that on them. Now, I've got 8 seniors and 4 of them are going to college and those guys are still going hard, but there's 24 hours in a day and, some of them have picked up some extra hours where they work and things like that, but they're finding time. They were finding time. And a lot of them are still doing stuff. And, that makes me happy. But, going back just for a second, it's hard on the kids because they don't get a senior year. But, I've got some senior parents that this is their youngest kid. This is their last kid. Mm-hmm. Mm. And, I think as a parent, I've got 3 daughters and they were all athletes. And I remember I'd give $1 million, not if I could go back and play, but if I could go back and watch them play. Yeah. And, this is hard. A lot of people don't realize how hard it is on the parent, because if you have children and you sat there and watch your kids compete and you watch them fail, you're broken. And, some parents are embarrassed because their kids can't perform. It's everybody else's fault, I guess. But I can remember watching my kids perform and them not do very well and me just being broken for them and not knowing what to say and, that kind of stuff. So I think you're going to have a lot of parents who are going to do that. Moms are moms, and the modern mom, she uses social media to put pictures of her kid. She'll put one up there when he was like 6, and then when he was like in middle school, and then that senior photo. They'll do things like that. That's how they're trying to deal with it.
Yeah, it is.
The description you give of the way baseball's a grind, I think, what a perfect analogy for life right now, because every day that we wake up, we don't really know what how tomorrow is going to change,
And
it's funny. You normally make all those, life seems to be what baseball imitates life usually. But in this case, it's almost as if life is imitating baseball, in regards to that grind.
Pat, that's a great comparison. That's a great analogy right there. Somebody said, "Oh, baseball, it's boring." And anytime somebody says that, I'm like, yeah, it is. It's a game within a game, and there's a reason why they play 162 games. That many World Series are won in June and July, and you can put yourself out of a World Series in the big leagues, in May. And there are teams, you look in June, they're already 20 games back and they got no shot. But they still have to show up every day and work because that's what they're supposed to do. And you're exactly right about how they're imitating each other.
Yeah. One of the things that we were talking about before I don't want to say before we hit the record button, because we've actually been recording this whole time. So hopefully you don't mind if I go back and put some of our conversation before we got official here, Coach. But one of the things we were talking about before we jumped on here was how much information there is out there right now, how much the game has changed because of that, because of the knowledge. Of course, we've been able to utilize technology today in ways that the baseball world has never seen before. And it's opened up doors for a lot of people, some really smart people and I guess I should say too, really rich people. I know there are a lot of schools around here that can't afford the technology to use, so they're just out there grinding it out. like the old school ways. But how do you, I'd be curious, because I know, Coach, you speak at a lot of conferences, you get a chance to teach and provide a lot of, people are always asking you to come and share drills and things that you do with your teams. How are you able to filter through so much stuff out there about the game of baseball that's on the internet, on YouTube, on Twitter, when people are saying, hey, you've got to get this if you're going to be a great coach. You got to have this Rapsodo, man. No team that's worth their salt is going without this right now today, you know. And how are you working through all of this as a high school baseball coach?
Well, I mean, it's like this, and it's like this with any coach. I think there's more of an epidemic than coronavirus going on right now, and it's fear of missing out. You know, there are so many young coaches that are afraid, if I don't do this, I won't be any good. And I know what I like, and I know I've got my philosophies and my approaches and how I teach, but I'm always picking up information. And I think the technology, if you just use the technology to lead the way, I think you're going to miss out. If you don't use the technology, I think you're going to miss out. I think if you don't use technology nowadays, you're going to lose credibility with your players. So, you know, we do some stuff, and we don't have Rapsodo. I can't afford $5,000. If you said, hey, I'm going to give you Rapsodo, I'd take it in a minute.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I'd take all that stuff in a minute, but it's really hard for me to fundraise and sell hams and for Thanksgiving and then go out and go, hey, we're going to buy this piece of machinery that we're going to occasionally use to measure to see spin rate. You know, it'd be dead silent in my Butcher Club meeting. Yeah. So what I have to do is I have to go, hey, there's this Christmas showcase, and they've got Rapsodo. Why don't you go there? And I know the guy running it. He'll send me your. So yeah, I mean, you have to be creative, but I think they're in today's society. I see guys on Twitter, and I just have, I just have to go, that is not going to work, but I can't comment because I don't want to go there. I could care less.
Yeah.
It's not my job, to be the guardian of baseball on Twitter. I know what I like, but there's some absolute clowns on Twitter. And I think they're really, jacking up a lot of kids, their game. And that's fine. And that's fine. As a parent, if you take your kid to certain teachers and you don't know any better, you're just, you're flushing money. So I always tell my parents, hey, if you want to get lessons, that's fine. I encourage that. You're going to find out they're doing what we're doing if they're, pretty reputable. And I encourage that. And I like my guys to hear other voices. And my guys will bring stuff to me and they'll go, hey, coach, check this out on Twitter. And I'll just look at it and they'll go, there's no way that works. So I think we've done a pretty good job of educating guys. But I think a lot of people have more money than sense. And these are some intelligent people. But when it comes to stuff like this, they have too much of an ego to ask, hey, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Or, hey, we spent $5,000 on this. What do you think? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, $5,000, really? Yeah. You spent way more than my coaching supplement, on a scouting service that I've never even heard of this. No one's ever even heard of it. But I think you have to use technology. If nothing else, to give yourself a little credibility amongst your players. I like technology. I like numbers. I think at the high school game, there's a difference between data and analytics and the use of technology. If you're doing major shifts and your sample size on a kid, it's 5 at bats, I don't know if that's going to pay off. But I know this, if you walk to the plate and you're 6'5", 260 from the right side, we're going to walk our defense toward left field because you're probably going to hammer a ball that way.
Yeah, I get it.
I think it's a good segue there, talking about, the relationship between players and their, I would say, personal instructors. Coach, you've been, had a part in baseball for 30 years. We said in the opening there. And I was just wondering, because I'm interested in knowing, about faults and weaknesses and things like that. But I'm wondering if, aside from the fact that, our hitters and our fielders and our players and our parents, when they get to us in high school, seem to be have so much knowledge available to them and are so knowledgeable in regards to those types of things, or maybe they might even be on the wrong path, but you feel like they have a certain amount of understanding of what they need to do to be better. Is there anything that you see or have seen that has changed in players or in the game as far as youth goes and high school goes over the last 30 years that's different now than it was, or something kids aren't good at now that they used to be, or anything in that regard?
Absolutely. I think kids are the same. I really think kids are the same. And I heard Corbs down at Vandy. We were talking, and he made that comment, and he was like, I think kids are the same now. And you think about it, they have the same thoughts. When I was in elementary school, if I saw a high school baseball player, I thought he was a big leaguer, and I looked up to him. And then I got in high school and was a high school player, and little kids would ask for your autograph and stuff. You're like, what are they doing? I'm nobody. I'm just a high school baseball player. But I think parents are different now. I really believe that. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. I just think that parents it's become a dog-eat-dog world. And parents want the best for their kids. So they're going to do all they can to leverage and, get the best for their kids. And where it was back in the day when I was playing, every coach in our youth league, none of them have kids in the league. They were all older gentlemen. And I remember Little League. I was catching a Little League game, and I caught a strikeout, and I flipped the ball back to the mound and ran toward the dugout. I just happened to look up, and all the Babe Ruth coaches were sitting together probably 30 yards away. And I was like, oh, my gosh. And I asked my dad, I said, what are they doing? He's like, they're scouting Little League games, getting ready for the draft. And I was like, what? Yeah. And I thought that was so cool. And then we got drafted, and none of our coaches had kids in the league. So they didn't have that bias. So they taught us all, and they taught us all the same, and they played the best kids. And if you were good enough, they'd let you play. And I still, I'm not ashamed to admit this. I still kind of take some of my 13-year-old baseball coach. I kind of take some of his stuff, and it's like, hey, if you're good enough, you're going to get in. And he had the courage to give kids chances. And I catch myself looking at kids and talking to my coaches like, this kid can't do it. And I catch myself putting the kid in, and then every now and then the kid will do it. And you're like, good for you. Good for you. Way to make your way. I'm big on opportunity, and, we'll have guys roll in with 40 guys in the dugout, and they'll play the same 9 guys. And I'm all about development. And I'm always coaching with next year in mind. Yeah. And I'm going to squeeze guys in and give them opportunities, pinch runner, defense, replacement, pinch hit. We're going to, I'm famous for using 6 kids on the mound in a game, matching up just to get kids out there. And I've said it a million times. My assistant coaches hate it. We'll be winning like 12-1 and about to run rule you, and I'll put an arm in, and we'll end up winning like 12-4. And an assistant will walk by and just kind of look at me like we could have been eating 45 minutes ago. But, with me, it's about development, and a great story. I got a million of them as far as that, but I had a right fielder who was a first baseman. We thought he could pitch. He's a big, tall kid. He's a defensive end on the football team, about 6'4", 6'5", slender kid. And he came to us as a pitcher first baseman, and he didn't like ground balls. And he struggled throwing strikes. And I was like, wow, he's such a good kid. And he's got, has the potential for a big bat. And we made an outfielder. And I'll never forget, I was like, have you ever played in the outfield? And he went, no, I always play first base. I was like, well, run out there and let's see what it looks like. And we hit him a couple of fly balls, and he wasn't even in the same area code. And I was like, okay, well, we got to find a place for him to play. So we put him his first high school at bat. We put him up, and we just wanted him to bunt a guy over. And he bunted the guy over, and he got his high fives. And the next day, same situation. We put him up, and he bunted the guy over. And I'm not kidding. This is a true story. Third day in a row, put him up there, and I kind of walked down. He said, you want me to bunt him over? And I was like, no, I want you to swing away. And he was like, okay. And he goes double in the gap and scores the guy. And the next game, we started him in the outfield, just to kind of rotate him in. And he made a couple plays, and, he got a couple hits and had a walk, and he never came out. And that's the progression of it. I think a lot of times coaches don't have the courage to put a kid in because they think they know what's going to happen. And golly, if I could predict the future, what was going to happen in a baseball game, I'd be in Vegas. I wouldn't be a baseball coach.
I was going to say, Coach, the moral to that story is, why are you sack bunting a kid that can hit doubles in the gap?
Yeah, yeah. So I was a learner right there.
No.
But I think we have kids on our team that they're great learners, but then when it comes to performing the skill and you add in all the outside stress, and they just are not very good at that. They're great learners, but they can't perform. And then other kids are okay learners, but they rise up and they have the ability to perform. And many times that performance under stress, we don't get to see it because, in practice you can enter squad, but it's not the same as, 7:30 on a Friday night against your rival in front of a full house, and it's gotten hostile. And you just can't simulate that.
Yeah. You brought up an interesting point early on there, and it's something I asked Pat. Pat, do you remember me asking you this question several weeks ago? It was, can you think of any coaches that are in your local recreational league right now? Pat's an officer in the in his local league. Can you think of any coaches from 8 years old up through 18 years old that are not in some way, shape, or form related to a kid that's on the team, either mom or a dad or an uncle, grandpa, or whatever? And Pat, could you think you thought of maybe one, even if that?
Yeah, it was real tough. Yeah, one or two. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, like you were saying, your 13-year-old coach. I'm the same way. My 12U coach was just a guy that was out of college. He loved baseball. He played baseball, and he's like, I just want to give back in some way. And so it was such a memorable time for me. His name was Joe Bob Hemsley, and we gained so much from old Joe Bob. And I can't think of a coach like that today. Someone who's just going and wanting to do it, wanting to give back in that way, who's not a parent.
Right. And that's, like I said, society has changed. My first team I ever coached, I coached a bunch of 8-year-olds, and I was 17 years old, and I got 2 of my high school teammates, and there were 3 of us that were 17 years old, and we had a parent meeting, and those parents, they looked at us and they didn't bat an eye. All they saw were people that wanted to work with their kids, and they would come and sit in the bleachers. And, that first practice, they all sat in the bleachers because we were kids and coaching kids. And they saw, that I had a plan. It was the most structured practice of anybody in that age group. And we were patient because I told my 2 teammates, I said, hey, I want to do this. Will you help me? And they were like, yeah, we'll help you. And I said, we got to be patient. These are little kids. Mm-hmm. I said, everybody's watching us. So we had a plan, and we had great practices, and had a lot of success that year. And I wanted to do it just to see if I could do it. Yeah. And I can remember being 19, coaching 17-year-olds, and never having a hiccup, never having a problem. And if you had a league and it had 20 teams in it, and you said, okay, I need 20 people to volunteer to step up, to be ridiculed, harassed. People are going to hide behind a screen name and talk about you like you're trash.
Right.
Who's up? Who wants some of that? Well, only a fool would do that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it may only be half the problem. I'm not so sure that the issue isn't with the 17 to 24-year-old kids, because I've got a 21-year-old right now who he can't wait to coach. He's playing in college, but he's loving the idea of being a coach. I wonder if maybe dad coaches like me have pushed them out. have pushed out, maybe we do have some kids that come out of high school and like, yeah, I'd love to coach, but they just don't have an avenue. They don't have a venue because everyone makes their own team with their own kids and their kids' friends, right, and they join the league, and there is no room for a 18-year-old coach anymore. I think if you're running a league out there, so yeah, if you're listening and you're an 18-year-old and you're like, well, I want to coach. I just can't find a place. We get that. If you're running a league out there, look for these guys, ask for them,
Absolutely.
Well, I think on top of that, we don't have an infrastructure in place to develop those coaches either.
Yeah.
We're looking for kids that want to do it, but then have the courage might not be the right word, but it's taking a little bit of a risk, to say, yeah, I'll do it. It's definitely a commitment. To find those types of people is very, very difficult.
Absolutely. And it's on both sides, mm-hmm. Coaching isn't important until it is. And they do very little to educate coaches, especially at a high school level. You're an afterthought. They hate the thought of spending money on athletics in a lot of places because it's a waste. It's not academic, that kind of thing. And they don't want to, they're afraid that they won't be known as an academic institution, that there'll be an athletic institute. Like, that's a bad thing. Right. And I say this all the time. If you'll spend more money on youth sports, you don't have to build as many jails. And if you'll invest in youth sports, then you don't need as many police cars. You're not going to have the same amount of drug problems. It's going to get phased out. And I believe that. But on the flip side of that, you need to invest in sports. But at the same time, I see a lot of guys coming out of college and they'll coach high school for 2 or 3 years, and the people around them make it really hard. Parents are hard on them. Administrators, sometimes not all administrators, believe it or not, have spines and are willing to take a stand and draw that line in the sand and go, don't cross this. Parents do not cross this line. And so I think it's not important until it is. And, I was looking today, I got a little pop-up on email, and it was talking about coaching classes at this college and how you could do them online, which I'm not down with the online learning to be a coach, but I thought, well, that's pretty cool. You can go to this college and get 15 hours in a leadership section, and it's coaching. And I looked at, it was talking about the science of sports performance and the psychology of sports performance, and that's something that I think would be really neat. But do we go out of our way to educate coaches? Like, I know in Tennessee, if I go to a coaching conference, I'll see other coaches from other states and hey, I get 12 in-service hours for this. What do you guys get? And I'm like, wow, we get nothing.
The school gives
to take a personal date and pay for it ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, but yet they'll let us drive kids 5 hours away and supervise them, but they don't do anything to train us to do that. They don't. We have one at my school, and I'm not bashing on my school, but we have one coaches meeting at the beginning of the year, and it's usually how to fill out a purchase order. That kind of thing. Society has changed. And I think with social media, instead of having a lot of face-to-face conversations, which, I remember coming home from a game and going, and my mom of all people, I was like, yeah, I went 0 for 3 and coach pulled me out and pinch hit for me. And she was like, you're not very good. And my mother, who was a nurse for 40 years, she understood 0 for 3 is not very good. And, but it wasn't like, oh, I'll talk to that coach. It was, you need to get better if you want to keep playing.
Boy, give me a mom that says that today to their kid.
Not happening.
Not happening, is it?
And I'm not bashing on any moms listening.
That's right.
The travel team mom knows like 4 phrases and just screams them for 3 hours over and over. I've been with USA Baseball for 13 years, and I've heard them all, and I've seen everything. I've seen everything and heard everything that a parent can say.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole episode right there, Pat. Travel team mom phrases. Well, that'll
just
knock
to
our
be
listenership
fair,
down.
I'd throw the fathers in there too.
Yes, right.
The fathers are a little bit more aggressive. You know, they wear those flip flops and the khaki baggy shorts.
There you go. The bucket hat now. If you really want to stand out, you got to get you a bucket hat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the field. Let's go on to the field for a second. One thing I really appreciate, I remember, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago, maybe, Coach, you posted something about your approach with umpires, and I had an epiphany in my life as well, from one year to the next, and it was this: that actually umpires are not our opponents. And I used to think they were. You know, as a young coach, I showed up to the game with a chip on my shoulder, just ready to go to battle, not against an opponent, but against an umpire. Right. And I remember you putting something out there that it kind of outlined your approach, and it talked about your relationship, or the relationship in general, between coaches and umpires, and how you choose to approach that. Could you talk about that a little bit with us?
Well, you know, people find it hard to believe. In all my years of baseball, I've only been ejected one time, and it was by a 21-year-old who was really wrong, and he was nervous, and he didn't know what to do. And he confined me to the dugout and ejected me all in the same sentence. He didn't even use a comma, and I didn't have a chance really to get out of there. But he threw me out of the game because he didn't know what to do. He was scared. He was nervous, and I had my back to him, and I had turned to walk away, and I looked at our dugout. One of my assistants, his face got really big, and I went, he just threw me out, didn't he? And he just started shaking his head, yes. And I turned and I went, why'd you throw me out? And he goes, you need to go away. That was his answer. But I've been very aggressive in the past with umpires because, dadgummit, you know, we practice 3 or 4 hours a day, and we go year round, and we're lifting and sweating, and these guys roll up and make more money than I do. And, you know, they could care less. And like you said, they show up with a chip on their shoulder. And so it'd really make me mad if they weren't in position or something like that. And, you know, I would drop one-liners on them, and it seemed like they were more worried about, you know, my foot being 6 inches out of the dugout than ball strike safe out. And, you know, as I've aged, as soon as I meet the umpires at home plate, I try to, even if I've never met them, I try to joke with them. Like, I'll try to say something funny because I want to gauge what kind of human I'm working with.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to know why the guy is there. And, you know, I could care less. Yes. If you're missing calls, I could care less. Like, I won't allow any of my coaches to bark about balls and strikes, and we don't do that because that's tough. Safe and out is a judgment thing, but it's about being where you're supposed to be. And if you're getting after it and you're just bad, you know, that's part of it. Right. But I want to know why you're there. So I'm trying to gather information, and if you're a good guy who's not a very good umpire, I just kind of look at my team and go, snowball fight. We're just going to have to win this one 20 to 19. But if you're Mr. Professional who's always looking in my dugout and trying to intimidate me and my kids, you know, I have a problem with that. We had a situation that it was really neat at the beginning of the year. Like I said, we were in this tournament, and it's like game 2. And my center fielder hits a ball to the shortstop, and he's pretty quick. He's getting after it and getting down the line. He was in the runner's box, and when he gets to first base, the first baseman kind of gets tangled up, and the throw takes him up the line a little bit, and they have a collision, and they both go to the ground. And the umpire at first, he's kind of moving down the first base line like he's supposed to, like good umpires do. He just didn't stand at home plate. He's kind of walking down the line, watching it. And he looks at me because I'm in the dugout, and he looks at me, and he signals safe. He goes, safe, but your runner's ejected from the game. And I walked out of the dugout, and I said, whoa, wait. And I'm not raising my voice. I'm going, whoa, wait. Let's talk about this. let's talk about this. And he's looking at me, and I went, okay, let's get a grip on this. Just tell me, what did you see? And he said, Coach, he ran into him, and I said, oh, you can't. Oh, my guy was in the running box, and you can't penalize my guy because their guy has bad feet. And he said, well, I think, I said he did not lower a shoulder. He did not throw a forearm. I said, it's incidental contact. And I said, he put his hands in. He was trying to protect himself because he knew there was going to be contact. And the other umpire comes walking up, and I went, hey, all I'm asking is you guys just rationally think this out and talk. And they stepped away, and they talked for a couple of seconds and came back. And he goes, okay, Coach, I think you're right. And I went, outstanding. I said, that's outstanding. This is a great umpire call.
Yeah.
And he goes, it was incidental contact. Your guy's not ejected. And I said, listen, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have to put up with it from the other side for about 30 seconds. But I want you to know this might be the greatest umpiring move you've ever made in your career.
Yeah.
And he goes, he's kind of looking at me. And after the game, I told him, I said, man, that was beautiful. That was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I said, you guys talked, you made a call. You weren't sure. You talked about it and you used rational thought. I said, that might be the greatest umpire move I've ever seen. And, I think they're human. They got a job to do, but it's just like, every now and then you run into like a clerk in a store that's having a bad day or is not very good at their job and they're overwhelmed. So their ego bucks up. It's the same thing with coaches.
Yeah,
I was a jerk early on because I wanted to win every argument. I confused intensity with competing, and I'm a lot more laid back than I've ever been. But I still like to be right. So,
of course,
it's an awesome story there.
It is.
Yeah, it's true story. Yeah,
true story.
Coach, just real quick, how many times have you been able to get an umpire to change their call in your coaching career?
More than you think, because. I used to run. Oh my gosh!
You need to give a clinic on that, would you?
I used to run. Well, I tried to build a relationship, and you coach long enough, you know them all. Even when you go, like when we go to Nashville or Knoxville, I know them all, and not all of them, but I know the ones that have been around. And I think those umpires who've been umpiring a long time, they see a coach like me who's been coaching a long time. We're more allies, so I can get away with more. We can have more conversation. They can say things to me that they can't say to, a 26-year-old kid.
You're all out there for the same reason.
Yeah.
And in that situation, you are all out there for the same reason. You and the umpire.
And I
both.
think I give them respect because they've been doing it a long time. Yeah. And I think in turn, they give me respect because they know I've been doing it a long time. And we've both seen a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'll give them a little, they'll blow a call and I'll be like, Eddie, seriously. And he's like, that's what I got, Butch. And I'm like, come on, man. And I don't lose it, but they know, it's nothing personal.
Yeah.
I think what happens in society, somebody accidentally eases into your lane, it's an assault on your whole family. Like, road rage. I'm going to shoot somebody because they cut me off. I don't know where that comes from.
Instant offense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and you see it all the time. They don't respect me. I got disrespected. And what? Where does that come from? You got to earn it.
Yeah.
And, I'd like to think I earn my players' respect. That's why they trust me.
Yes.
And I'm telling them all the time, this is how we're going to do it. And they know that in my mind, I've seen it. I've tested it. I've talked to people. This is what we're going to do. And we do some things, we do a few things different. But they know, hey, this is how we're going to do it. This is what Coach said. And he knows it's going to work.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I was just wondering, I had 2 calls overturned this past season, and I think it was the first time I've ever had any ever called. So I was just wondering how often that happened for you. Yeah. Coach, we've had a great time today, and we don't want to take up too much more of your time. We could sit here and talk to you forever. There is one question that we want to ask you. We ask all the guests that come on. It seems like everyone has fun with it and has a good time answering. And that question is, could you give us one of your fondest memories from your days growing up playing youth sports?
Oh, golly. I think, and I've seen this I've seen this, and I say this all the time. If you don't think baseball's romantic, you don't have a pulse. Football is about running into guys, and I love football. Mm-hmm. And football is about running into guys and targeting. And baseball, I think George Carlin said it one time, baseball is about going home. And my earliest memories, putting my glove, which was actually my first glove, was my sister's glove, and putting my glove on my handlebars and riding my bike to the ballpark because my mom could care less, because back then I guess kids weren't kidnapped or something like that. Being like 8 years old and riding my bike 5 miles to the ballpark, to Saturday a.m. practice, because all the teams had like a 1 hour time slot to practice. So when you got to the park, every team in the league would be like outside the fence waiting to come on the field, and just getting so much done in an hour by a coach who he wasn't the smartest baseball guy, but man, he loved throwing BP and hitting the ground. He hit ground balls one-handed, and he assigned me catcher. He said, "You're the catcher," and I was like, "Okay." I had no idea what was going on, and him just like showing me how to put on shin guards, and then, playing games and going after the game, and coach buying us all a milkshake. Mm-hmm. And then, getting into high school and having a coach that played in the minor leagues for the Washington Senators. So I still have every handout my high school coach gave me. And, with the signs, I thought it was so cool. It was the first time we had signs. In youth league, they just kind of walk up, go bunt, or, steal. But my high school teammates and that bond, riding around after a game on a Friday night or something like that, just talking about the game and still having eye black on, and, just so many great memories. And I don't owe the game anything. The game doesn't tell me that I owe it anything, but I owe everything to the game. And it just means so much to me, because I know what it can do. I was going to be an engineer, and I had an English teacher in high school, and she was the best. She was so hard, and she made up words. Like for vocabulary, she would just make up words, and we'd have to find the definition. But she looked at me, she put a paper down in front of me, and I was a pretty good student. And she put a paper down in front of me, and it was a D on this like 1-page paper. And she looked at it and she went, "Your eligibility is in doubt." And she was talking about baseball. She was using baseball against me.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I remember just fondly high school, bonding with teammates and counting on each other and getting big hits and making plays, and high fives meaning something. Mm. And other parents going, "That was a great play," or, that 2-out RBI, that was awesome. And it made me feel good. So I think that's why I wanted to coach. Yeah. Because, this game, I owe it nothing, because it owes nothing to me, but I want to give it so much. Because I think one of my worst nightmares would be dying, and I could have helped a coach, but I didn't. I missed that opportunity. And my best friends are coaches, and I would suggest, if you're a coach, your best friends need to be your other coaches, because they're going through the same thing. Coach, you at your school, you go through the same thing I do. You have the same parents, they just have different last names, but you have the same problems I do. I guarantee it.
Isn't that the truth?
Guarantee it. Yeah. And I think a lot of times young coaches, they're by themselves, and they're embarrassed because of parents on them or saying things about them or something like that. And they think they're the only one going through that. And they're not. Every coach goes through everything every other coach goes through.
Yeah. Wow, that's the
Good
truth.
word.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, man, what an awesome time we've had here, Butch. We're not professional podcasters by any means. We're just two guys that love to coach and love kids, and we live in a small rural area in Ohio. We both work at Ohio University, and I've been a high school baseball coach. Pat's been a youth baseball coach at the middle school as well, and have coached other sports as well. And we have had kids that are involved in local rec league as well as travel leagues. And we've seen a lot of different directions that these student athletes have chosen to take, and the direction that it's gone, both for the positive and the negative. And we just kind of had a desire to get on and talk a little bit about not a negative thing. We don't want to just get on and talk about all the negatives about travel ball and all the negatives about things, but we believe in that there's a difference between complaining and solution, finding solutions. And so if there are things that we need to point out and say, hey, what can we actually do to make things better? We want to be part of the solution. And so I've been on Twitter for several years and just ran into you probably 5 years ago, or saw some stuff that you're not hard to find on Twitter. I'll say that. I'll just put it that way. But then through the American Baseball Coaches Association, the conference there, and looking at your teachings, you've just been an incredible mentor to a lot of people that you've never even met yet. And so I want to say thank you in that respect.
I appreciate that.
Definitely.
I appreciate that. A long time ago, when I first started out, it was kind of set up. I was an assistant coach at my high school for my high school coach, mm-hmm. and he loved baseball, but he didn't love baseball. But he was a good coach, and he worked us. But I think he just kind of got tired of it, and he kind of set it up, and he stepped down at Christmas, so they kind of had to make me the head coach. So I get into it, and I didn't have an assistant coach. And I remember sitting on a bucket during games going, God, if somehow I can power through this and have a career in this, there'll come a time that any coach that if he feels like I got something he wants, I'm going to give it up because I know exactly what it's like to be alone and having to make decisions. And you're looking at a 15-year-old little manager sitting next to you, asking him advice. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm helping somebody because this is miserable. So
yeah. Isn't that the beauty though?
That's awesome.
That's the beauty of the baseball fraternity, the coaching fraternity is there's nothing like it. There really isn't. I've got football coach friends and I tell them stories about our state conference and they're like, that's just not the way it is at the football conference. And
it's not. And I was at the ABCA many, many, many years ago and I was walking around, the exhibit hall and, I picked a ball up and I looked at the guy and I went, hey, can I borrow this for a second? And he was like, sure. And I walked over about I had the ball for 45 minutes and I brought it back and put it on the table. And he goes, that's why I love you baseball guys. And I went, why is that? And he goes, well, next week is football convention. I have to go to that. And we can't leave anything laying out. They'll pick a football up and you'll never see it again.
Oh my.
But you baseball guys, you always bring stuff back. You're such a joy to work with. You're always looking for stuff, to help out the vendors to buy stuff. But and I'll be honest with you, the baseball, it hasn't always been like that. It hasn't always been like that. A long time ago, I can remember, getting bullied by older coaches, and because they were trying to win the game, and
right.
And they try to bully you, they intimidate you and bully you. And I was like, what are we doing? So I want my guys after a game, if you beat me, I want them to see me go over and shake hands with you and bro hug you if I like you and tell you got a good team. I want my guys to see that. Yeah. And they've been seeing it for years. And I like it. I hate playing friends, but I love playing good guys. And if I can schedule, I control my schedule, and every game I can control, I'm going to play a friend of mine or a good guy. Mm-hmm. And because it's just a game. It's just competition. Mm-hmm. And, I like it. I don't have to be satisfied. If I play you and you beat me and I like you and we shake hands and bro hug and I tell you got a good team and good luck. And if I can do anything and then turn and walk away going, golly, I hate that we lost that game. Yeah. But not acting like I'm, 6 years old or something.
Right.
Like that.
Coach Chaffin, you said that, it didn't used to be that way. And I'm wondering, because something that Coach and I have talked about recently is kind of the environment on, I'm sure it doesn't exist just on Twitter, but there's this, I don't know, there's two extremes, it seems like, in the baseball coaching world right now. It's on one side, you have coaches that are really heavy into data and technology and driving their coaching and their instructing through that. And then on the other side, you have coaches that don't buy into that at all and are completely against it. And it seems like there's a lot of tension between those two groups. I'm wondering if whereas you said before, it used to be older coaches are bullying younger coaches. If we're kind of heading in the direction where there's going to be a lot of this arguing going on between, those two sides.
There's a lot of younger coaches today bullying the older ones with the technology.
That's true. You're right. That's a good point. Wow. Yeah.
There's a lot of that. I know, back in the day, and I'll say back in the day, there wasn't a platform or a forum to share information. So I did what I did. And if I got results, I got results. Nobody went, hey, how are you doing that? Now, and it's kind of gone to where people would share information. And now, there's no civil discord. This is how we do it. This is how you're supposed to do it. If you don't do it like this, you're dumb. And what happens is, like on Twitter or any kind of social media platform, if you say this is how you do it and this is the only way you do it, I dump you. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to gather information. I only hang out with people that are open-minded, and I can say, hey, Chris, I love what you're doing with base running. And you would tell me, this is what we're trying to do, because that's what I do.
Even if I'm playing you next week.
Absolutely. Yeah. During the game.
Right.
I've done that during the game.
Right.
Where we've got 5 games in this year before they called it off.
Oh, wow.
And during the game, the first base coach was walking over, and I stayed in the dugout, and I let my assistants coach the bases, and he came over, and I went, how is this kid holding that changeup? Because this kid just stacking changeups. And he goes, he won't even tell us. So after the game, we're going through the line, and I got the kid, and I went, come on, man, show me how you're holding that changeup. And he goes, Coach, I don't show anybody. And I went, we're not leaving until you show me that. And on their way, they were cleaning out our dugout, and he came by, and he just for a second, he held the ball up, and he showed me how he was throwing it. And he didn't say anything. He just showed me. But I mean, that's baseball, guys. Well, there's only so many ways to hand off a football.
Right. And you taught him a great lesson there, just in that little exchange about what life is going to be like in the future as he holds on to, as he continues in baseball. Yeah. He'll change his mind about that. I get it. So.
He had a tool, and it was a great tool, and he didn't want to share it. I kind of forced him.
Well, man, we know you're a teacher too. And I know it's not easy being a teacher right now with online stuff they're probably requiring you to do there in Tennessee. So we'll give you back your time. And Coach, we can't say enough about our gratitude toward you today.
Guys, this has been awesome. And, anytime, if I could be of any help to you or anything, if you need anything, you just let me know. And, there's nothing better than a conversation about baseball.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Thanks a bunch.
Definitely. Thanks again, Coach.
Thank you so much.
Yep. We'll see you.
See you guys. Stay in touch.
Will do.